Welcome to 10 for 10, voting vision, not division. Over the next few weeks, my colleagues and I at Faith Commons will host a series of these conversations in which we will address 10 topics of interest with regard to the upcoming election. We'll try to do that in 10 minutes each and do it over 10 weeks as we prepare for the election. At Faith Commons, we believe that religion and politics do in fact go together, but how they go together is vitally important. Faith is a way of envisioning the world, and politics is one way of making that vision a reality. We all know that religion and politics both can bring people together or they can drive them apart. We obviously believe that religion should bring people together and that our politics should reflect that as well, that we should vote the way we pray. That is, that everyone be included and valued, that all means all, and that we should love our neighbor as ourselves and not operate or behave out of fear of others. And so here we are with this first episode. I'm joined by my colleagues, Rabbi Nancy Kasten and Mara Richards-Bim, and we are Faith Commons. And we'll begin to address these subjects. Today is Labor Day, our first one. And so coinciding with that, our theme is, of course, labor or work. And Nancy will begin by addressing that from her Jewish faith tradition, and Mara will respond, and we'll conclude in just a moment. So let's begin, Nancy.
Well, we see the Jewish approach to work from the very beginning in the book of Exodus, where we read in chapter 20, 6 days shall you labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or daughter, your male or female slaves, or your cattle, or the stranger who is within your settlements. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea and all that is in them. And God rested on the seventh day. So in our tradition, and of course other traditions, Christianity, Islam, and others, adopted this idea that it is commanded of us to work, and it is also commanded to rest, to refrain from work. And that's how we bring God into the world. All manner of work, from the most menial to the most elevated, is necessary to perpetuate and sustain God's creation. And the people, and even the animals who do that work, must be cared for and given time to rest from their labor. Now, not every culture believed that. The Greeks and the Romans looked down on labor and saw freedom from work as a right of rank and privilege. And we see both in what we see in America today. We both have the idea that the American dream is that if you work hard enough, you will succeed. We also have the idea that monetary compensation is the measure of that success. And if you don't work hard somehow, then you will fail and you'll have no one to blame but yourself. Now, this idea that you're in it for yourself is really not part of either our faith tradition or even the founding of America and the way America came into being. Certainly my grandparents came to this country for opportunity. They didn't come because they were not landed gentry arriving on these shores. Policy, when it comes to labor, has two purposes. One is to protect workers, to make sure that they are healthy and safe. So those include policies that have to do with health care and retirement benefits and taxes and things like that. Other kinds of policy enable workers to do their work. That includes being able to live close to where you work, to get there with transportation, to have affordable childcare. So these aspects of policy that are addressed through our politics are very important in how we view work and how people see themselves as workers in our society. So if we are people of faith, then we must keep in mind that our tradition requires us to work, also requires us to rest, and to protect the ability to work and to rest for others as well.
Wonderful. Mara?
Yeah, so as a United Methodist, the rights of workers has been embedded in our tradition since John Wesley, our founder. He was very concerned both with the conditions under which people labored, and also he was against slavery, which not all traditions were when he was around in the 1700s. And that focus on the rights of workers was really embedded in our social practices in 1908. The precursor to the United Methodist Church was the Methodist Episcopal Church, and they issued a social creed. It was the first denomination to do so. And so it was actually in response to the labor practices in the Industrial Revolution here. And so it called for things like the abolition of child labor. It called for safer, healthier working conditions. It called for time off for rest. It also said that every industry should pay workers the maximum possible for that industry. So wages were also a piece of that. And so, today as United Methodists, we just had a general conference back in May, and our new social principles that were adopted include things like, fair labor practices, living wage, and also dignity in work, that work is meaningful for people, that people are lifted up. We see everyone as the image of God, and everyone is valued and full of worth. And so that's there. But also to what you said, Nancy, there is also an emphasis on agriculture, and the animals used in agriculture are to be given rest, that the land is to be given rest, that farmers are to use sustainable practices in farming. And then there is a call in the social principles on consumers to really think about all those things as we consume products, and fair practices for everyone involved. And so as a Methodist, when I go to the ballot box, I have to keep all of those social principles in mind. It's how we live. We live by 3 rules. The first is do no harm. The second is do good, and the third is to attend to the ordinances of God. And we don't think we can do good until we've first done no harm. And so that's what I'll be thinking about when I go to vote.
Well, we hope you've heard some things from these 2 traditions of faith that help you think through these policy matters that will help inform your vote. Faith should inform your vote. And what we've heard today, I think, is a kind of faith that doesn't just default to the red tooth and claw world of competition where there are winners and losers all the time, but rather draws people together in a great enterprise of work and labor to make creation what God intends it to be. So carry that with you on November 5th or whenever you vote. But do vote, and make sure, by the way, that you are registered to vote. Well, let me just say that this is our first episode. We hope you've enjoyed it. Next week, because school has started, we're going to be talking about education. But for now, I'm George Mason with Rabbi Nancy Kasten and Mara Richards-Binn. Have a good day.